Hi, this tutorial is to help you with the Fireball exercise, part of our 2D video effects study. So you'll find the files that I'm using here on BB Learn. So on my desktop I've made a project folder and put the assets in here. So we've got Big Fire, a couple of wave files, audio files, a music file, and a couple of flame files. So let's go into After Effects and start a new project. We'll just wait for that. We'll start a new project and save this project to the project file. Fireball project. Okay, so the first thing to do then is to bring the project files in. So we'll just open those and open those. So now we have everything we need in here. So I'm also going to make some video of myself making a fireball. So I'm going to go into the photo booth app, and there I am. Hello ladies and gentlemen. With the video, so what I want to do is to kind of start the fire, like that's going to start the fire, and then I'll roll the ball for a couple of seconds and then I'll throw it. So I'll try and look into where the ball is. Let's see what happens. So I'll just check it a couple of times and make sure that it's all fine. But if we double click on here and export this to our desktop Fireball, and I'll call this Ken Magic. And now let's just go back into After Effects and bring our Ken Magic MOV into the project, and now we're ready to make a composition. So I'll start with by dragging my Ken Magic into the new composition here, and that'll make a composition based on the settings of my my video. So you can see it's 180 by 720, which is what my Macintosh is set to work at. Resolution at the moment is half, which is fine. I prefer that. The whole duration is 10 seconds. I will make that a little longer if I want to create a bit of space. And the background color is black. So everything there is fine. Okay, so now we're going to make the fireball, but we're going to make the fireball first in a new composition. And this composition, we're going to set the width 400 by 600. 10 seconds is fine, and then I'll call this Fireball. And I'm going to grab the big fire and drop it onto the fireball. So just be aware of what we've got down here. We've got this composition and our fireball composition. Now you can see that that the fire is much bigger. I'm going to shrink it a little bit, but not too much, because I've got another way of getting this into a circle. I want to go to the effects and presets. You might find it over here on the side, but if not, you'll find it under Windows, Effects and Presets. And we're going to look for a filter called Optics Compensation. Now, with this layer selected, we just double click and that will put the optics filter onto our big fire. Now, what's interesting about this is if we just drag it up to about 150, 160, you can see that it starts to turn it into a circle. Something like that. We can maybe go a little larger, make it a bit more circular. The other thing I want to do is make two copies of it. So if we play that now, that's kind of the base of our fireball. I'm going to do one more thing, which is to copy and paste, Command V, Command C, Command V, and take this top layer and just rotate it around 180 degrees so that we have fire going in sort of two directions now. The next thing I'm going to do to the fireball is to take some of this torch flame and put it on top. So we have this torch flame, and I'm just going to squash it down a bit so that it sits over our fireball. Now maybe something like this, and let's just sort of run through that, and that looks pretty good. Let's also grab this other one and also use it. This one I'm going to also shrink down and maybe rotate it. So I'm just going to go rotate 180 degrees, and this one will sort of sit kind of at the bottom of the fireball. So let's have a look at that now. Maybe that bottom flame is a bit large, so I might just bring it in a bit and see how that looks. Yeah, that top flame seems to be sitting a bit low, so I'm just going to take it up a bit. How's that? Yeah, that's looking pretty good, I think. So now I've got my fireball looking like I want it to look, and I'm going back to my magic, and I'm going to drag the fireball and sit it above my video. Now you can see it doesn't really look like much at the moment. It's there, but it doesn't look like I'm creating it. So we can do a few things. One is, bam, that's about where I want it to appear. So let's start it from there. I'm also going to open up the position so I can record the keyframes. So I'll start with the first one, and basically I'm going through, say, every half second I'm just going to correct its position so that it looks like it's staying in the center of my hands. So you get the idea. Just a few more. And when finally it gets pushed away, so let me just see what we have here. It gets sort of pulled in to about here, and then gets pushed away like this. So let's have a look at that now. So it's starting to look as though it's sitting on the video a bit better, sitting with the picture. The other thing that we can do is play around with the blend modes. By the way, if you don't see the blend modes, you can see this switches between them. So at the moment it's at normal. You might want to try maybe add, for example, to give it a better look of sitting on the video frame. So we've got a nice way to make it appear. To do this, we're going to the liquefy filter. So with the Fireball selected, double click on the liquefy filter, and you may remember this one from Photoshop. So what we're going to do here is to twirl with this brush here, the twirl brush. Now hold it in the middle and hold down the Command key first and get a brush that's bigger than the Fireball, and then we can just hold down the liquefy brush and it goes into a sort of a twirl. Okay, so once you feel like you've twirled it enough, you'll get something that looks like this, and then we can shrink it down also with this fifth brush. So I'm going to shrink it down, shrinking it down, and now we can put in a keyframe for the percentage. So right at the start we can say, okay, we're going to have 100% of the liquefy, and then maybe 2 seconds in we'll set that down to 0%. So that liquefy becomes the way we make the Fireball appear. And then the last thing I'll do to the Fireball is to maybe scale it. So if I go to S for scale, now we've got it appearing to that point, and I think from there we'll take it maybe about every second. I'm just going to adjust the scale so that it looks like it's sitting correctly. Just alter the position there a bit. And that's actually looking a bit too big. I'm going to take it down a bit there. And then, actually I've just noticed that it's flying a bit too fast forward there. So the next thing I'm going to do is put a glow on the Fireball. At the moment it's just sort of sitting there, but to make a glow we're going to copy the layer and paste it. It's Command V, Command C, Command V. So I've got 2 copies of the Fireball at the moment. I'm going to the top one here, and I'm going to find a filter called Fast Blur. Fast Blur, and just double click it and set the blurriness up to, I don't know, about 80 pixels maybe. If I turn off my Fireball, I can see what that blurriness actually looks like. And in fact I'm going to rename this one here to Fireball Glow. So now if I look at the 2 of them together, I can see how much blurriness I've got, and sort of set that blurriness So there's my glow. It's looking pretty good. Yeah, so by playing with that, with the blurriness, amount of blurriness, I can get that glow happening. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is try and put some lights onto my own face and body as the fireball kicks in. So to do that, we're going to create an adjustment layer above my original video. The adjustment layer is one we haven't used before, so in the adjustment layer I'm going to create a shape that sort of covers the shape of the front of me, and this is what I'll try and light up. We can light it up by using the curves. So I'm going to the curves and double clicking on the curves filter in our adjustment layer. So now if I bring up the curves, you can see that it's bringing up the brightening. So I can bring up all of the light, maybe take up the red amount, maybe take down the blue and the green amounts so that I get a sort of a red light. Now it's not sitting very nicely there at the moment, so let's just do a couple of things to make it sit nicer. One is with the mask, we can go in and feather the mask so that it's not a hard-edged mask. So I'm going for 100 pixels of feathering there, and now I can see this. The other thing that I will do is to just move it around a bit, and again, it doesn't have to be exact, but maybe every 1 second I can sort of just check that it's in the right place, depending on how my body is moving around. I'm sort of particularly looking at the face at the moment to just make sure at least that the face has got some light on it. So yeah, and at that point we probably don't need very much. In fact, we need to probably turn it off at that point. So let's bring the adjustment layer to start. About here. Bam. And finish about here. So there's the light shining on me, and it's gone. The last thing I'm going to do with my fireball is to put a lens flare effect on. So I'm selecting my original video and looking for flare, and there's my lens flare. So I double click to put it onto my video, and you can see that it's this lens flare effect that we get with cameras sometimes. So I'm going to set the lens flare center, and I'm going to do some keyframing there. So I'll put the center on the center of my fireball, and about every second I'll just correct that. So as the fireball moves around, the lens flare will also move around, and that should look pretty good. So, I'll come back to that. and then sort of at the end, well, let's see, where does it go off? It goes off at about there, so that's probably a good chance to have one last flare there, and as the fireball goes off, the lens flare also goes off. And the effect should then finish. So let's just check that lens flare effect. Now we don't want any lens flare effect. We want it to be a brightness of 100 there and a brightness of 0 here. So let's just have a look at that. And there's that lens flare looking pretty good. It does seem to fly off before the fireball, so I'll need to check that. But you get the idea. So that is pretty much the tutorial, and so your task is to get some video of yourself, not me. I don't want you handing in video of me. I want you to set up a nice action, film yourself producing a fireball and throwing it. And if you feel really ambitious, what happens to the fireball after it leaves your hand? Maybe that's a second shot if you're feeling ambitious. Okay, have fun as always, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to produce.